I recently came across Bitcoin Maxi who is telling me that XRP has essentially failed because Ripple's now moving to stablecoins. He pointed all the different banks that are now saying they're issuing their own stablecoin and saying XRP just became obsolete. Well, in this video, I want to talk about whether or not he's true and whether or not I have worries about one of these banks releasing a liquidity token or a stable token replacing XRP. Guys, this is a very important video to your understanding of the XRP ledger, so make sure to stick around for this whole thing. Like always, you support me so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I want to start out this video and talk about something real quick before we even get into the utility side of XRP, because something's changing pretty big in the market that I don't think a lot of people have really paid attention to. For the longest time, we've really separated XRP outside of a store of value, and I've always thought this was incorrect. XRP is absolutely a store of value. Now, it doesn't have the same mainstream media store of value headlines that Bitcoin gets, but XRP is a deflationary supply, and XRP is an asset that can be used to store value. In fact, I think a lot of people in the XRP community have been storing value in XRP against USD for a very long time. As the dollars continue to crash, XRP since inception is up hundreds of thousands of %. And that right there is a good store of value. You're storing your value in a digital asset that's not inflationary, it's deflationary. And that's set in stone, right? There's never going to be more XRP. So it's very important to realize that this thought by XRP holders extremely early in XRP's inception, right? All of cryptocurrencies are still brand new to the world, and XRP is brand new to the entire financial system. This thought by XRP holders to use XRP as a store of value is now resonating with corporations. We're seeing right now, over the past couple of weeks, we have seen corporations jumping into using XRP as a treasury asset or a store of value. 500 million, 300 million, 121 million, 50 million, 10 million, 5 million. Large entities and financial institutions are now agreeing with XRP holders that this asset can be used as a store of value. We see a record amount of ETFs being launched for XRP. This is not for the utility of XRP, right? This is XRP as a store of value or an investment. And what this goes to show is, one, regardless if XRP fails in all utility and is never used for anything having to do with utility, it's still being used as a store of value. Now, personally, I think XRP is going to dramatically exceed in terms of being utility and being used in the financial landscapes. But it just goes to show that it's not just one thing that needs to happen here. There are a lot of different avenues for XRP to be extremely successful in the future. And just being a store of value, which XRP is slowly being adopted more and more as a store of value, just opens up the pie even larger for how much value XRP can bring in. Think, if XRP is bringing in hundreds of trillions of dollars of liquidity for utility, that's great. But if it also has another 10 to 25 trillion in terms of speculation and store of value, that's even better. Then you have even more money added to the pile. So it's really cool just to see XRP expanding the way people even look at it. Because what Bitcoin had to do is Bitcoin had to say, okay, well, we kind of failed at utility, so now let's just cut out utility and let's move to a store of value. XRP is kind of running both these tracks simultaneously, which is really, really good. It's extremely positive. But I want to make sure people are aware of how positive that actually is. It opens up brand new use cases, new opportunities that people didn't think about with XRP, but are absolutely legitimate and seem to be happening extremely quickly. I think we're going to see more and more financial institutions choosing to hold XRP, especially with the US nexus associated with it. The US narrative around XRP is going to be extremely powerful. We've already seen it in the beginning part of 2025, but I think that's going to get stronger and stronger. And you're going to see a lot of people saying, you know what? I want the thing that's American-based. This XRP thing, this is not only being used by banking institutions, but it's also has a US nexus. And therefore, this is going to be my store of value over something like Bitcoin. I think we're going to continue to see that materialize. And I just want to raise that point because not a lot of people talk about XRP as a store of value. But I think I could actually make an argument that it's a better store of value than something like Bitcoin. With that said, I want to talk a little bit about the utility side and some of these narratives. Well, people come out and they say, okay, well, they're not going to use XRP, right? They're just going to be using the banking stablecoins. These banks are going to come up with their brand new networks. Everyone's going to use those networks, and people are just going to use RLUSD. Circle's USDC token or the bank's own issued stablecoins. The only people who are saying that are people who don't understand how XRP was architected. Take a look at the payment stack right here. This is how the payment stack is laid out today. You have online banking applications at the top. Then you have banks. Then you have the rules that govern how settlement actually happens, right? So the banks aren't really doing a lot of settlement. They're just doing a lot of messaging, because underneath what you see as a customer on your bank portal is the rules and governance around settlement. Under settlement is ACH. Now, ACH and the interbank communication network for wires and cross-border payments, there's borderline no infrastructure, right? Essentially, it's just a whole bunch of people moving money around on the back end on outdated, broken, duct taped together system. There's no actual settlement network that is doing anything with technology that actually makes settlement happen. It's just a bunch of debit and crediting and moving money around. And it's a whole big nightmare in terms of who owes who what, because the actual banking applications and the actual messaging that sits on top is completely separated from the actual infrastructure being used to debit and credit the accounts and actually move the value from one party to another. XRP completely revolutionizes this because it makes settlement and messaging and the interchange of information and value unanimous across both. And what this means is you have a brand new settlement network, a brand new piece of infrastructure used to actually transmit the value. So people who think banks, right, who sit at the top, and online banking, and different tech companies like Apple and Amazon, or different people like JP Morgan, or countries like the United States, they think all these people are just going to come up with their own liquidity routing protocol and disrupt the XRP ledger. But what they don't realize is all of that stuff sits on top of the XRP ledger. XRP and Ripple sit as the settlement infrastructure. All these different players just plug in and use the infrastructure that is going to be best for moving value from one place to another. So these people think the system works not like it actually does. The people saying that Bank of America is going to come out with a stablecoin that's going to replace XRP don't realize that that's not what Bank of America is even trying to disrupt. They don't have the technology expertise. They don't have the network effect. They don't have anything to create a brand new settlement system. And even if they did, who would want to use their settlement system? Because JP Morgan would be like, no, I'm not using Bank of America's settlement system. We'll just build our own. And if everyone is building their own settlement system, then there's no universal settlement system and you're back in the same problem you already have today. The advantage of XRP is it sits as a neutral public utility, a neutral good, a neutral value remittance protocol that anyone can plug into and have a fair set of rules. That way, rather than having a single king, you just have everyone agreeing that no one's the king and everyone just uses the public decentralized rails to move the value. That's exactly how the internet works today. It wouldn't work if one company owned the internet, right? Because then no one would want to use that internet. Everyone uses the internet because it's neutral, it's public. Anyone can go use it, and then boom, you're connected to everyone else in the world. What Ripple is trying to do with XRP positions the XRP ledger in that same exact place. A neutral settlement tool that anyone else can plug into. But it doesn't work if everyone has their own system, right? Everyone wants to be part of the neutral system and just have their own instance connected to that neutral settlement system. So all the Bitcoin maxis, all these people saying that XRP isn't needed, people aren't going to use it, have no idea about how the system is actually architected. All of these different parties, corporations, governments, anything, people, individuals, they all sit on top of the rails. And they're going to utilize the most liquid, the fastest, the most efficient rails available, which is where Ripple is positioning XRP. On those rails, it's very clear what XRP does. XRP is a critical piece of the entire equation. The XRP ledger is the decentralized clearinghouse, right? The XRP ledger is the platform. The XRP ledger is what interconnects everything in a decentralized way so everyone gets access to this neutral settlement infrastructure. It's a decentralized exchange. Anyone can plug into it, anyone can swap anything they want, and then boom, you replace hundreds of millions to billions to trillions of dollars of fees and counterparties and mess ups and all these different things that are being done in a really outdated legacy way with simple, neutral, decentralized infrastructure. But in this new system, right, in this new paradigm, these new rails we've created that gets rid of all these middlemen, you still need a neutral asset in the middle. You need something to act as a neutral liquidity, a something that can be swapped to anything, something that can handle any amount of volume, any amount of transactions coming in, something that just sits in the middle and is liquid to everything issued on the system. That's what XRP does. It's the neutral liquidity that makes the entire system work. It's what makes this entire decentralized exchange, this entire new clearinghouse, actually function as intended. So XRP is a critical part of the equation. It doesn't matter if 55 banks all issue their own stablecoin. They still need a way to transact from one stablecoin to another. They need a way to swap their debt. They need a way to swap their credit spreads. They need a way to swap their derivative exposure. They need to do all these complex swaps and financial interactions, and they can't be searching for liquidity pairs between all these different weird, obscure trades that they have to do. XRP acts as neutral liquidity in the middle. So if Bank of America wants to work with JP Morgan and they want to swap, they don't have to set up some specialized agreement for the swap to happen. They can just swap through a neutral counterparty asset like XRP. Now they're using decentralized infrastructure and decentralized liquidity, not taking any counterparty risk, but still able to engage with their counterparties. This is the system being built. And the most powerful thing about all of this is no one has to have any say in it. All these things can just be plugged into. You don't have to ask permission to set up a website, right? You can just set up a website. You don't have to ask permission to go on Facebook and start looking around at different posts. Well, sort of you do, but companies are on, but you get the point, right? You can post something, it reaches the network effect of the internet, and everyone can see it. That is the world we're heading into with the movement of value. That is what Ripple is trying to build at an infrastructure layer. And the sooner you can wrap your head around that, the sooner you will understand that XRP is a critical utility for everyone to use. And it's a benefit to the entire system. And there's no point in replacing something that is going to make everyone's life easier. All you have to do is build the best mousetrap. You have to build the best system. And everyone will plug into the best system because it makes everyone's life better. It fixes all the problems they are currently facing without giving power to anyone else. No one can build the new system because they would be assuming the power. No one would want to use a system where they have all the power. And no one's going to opt into a system where they have no power. The XRP ledger is the perfect middle ground. And on that system, XRP is the pristine liquidity. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.